For those over 60, pay close attention. What's on your plate tomorrow morning could trigger a stroke as early as next month. As a neurologist, I've repeatedly witnessed seemingly healthy older adults suddenly lose the ability to speak, move, or even recognize loved ones. It was astonishing to discover how many strokes are linked to one food almost every senior regularly consumes: eggs. While eggs can certainly be beneficial, their impact depends entirely on how they're prepared, what they're combined with, and how often they're eaten. This article will reveal 5 critical mistakes older adults make with eggs, explaining why these errors significantly raise stroke risk overnight, and which type of eggs can actually protect your brain. Don't assume your morning meal is safe just because it's routine. Sometimes, the most common foods inflict the most hidden damage. This information could save your life or the life of someone you care about. Frying eggs in butter or lard. Picture a serene Sunday morning. You head to the kitchen. The pan sizzles, the aroma of butter and lard fills the air, and you crack a couple of eggs, just as you've done for years. It feels comforting, a familiar taste from the good old days. However, here's the unsettling truth. This comfort could be causing irreparable harm to your brain. As a neurologist, I've repeatedly seen how this misconception leads to tragic consequences, often when it's already too late. The problem isn't the egg itself, but what you cook it in. Lard and butter are rich in saturated fats. When these enter your bloodstream, they contribute to rising LDL, bad cholesterol levels, trigger inflammation in artery walls, and subtly promote the formation of atherosclerotic plaques, especially in the arteries supplying blood to your brain. Now, imagine this. Your heart is already working harder in the morning. Blood pressure naturally rises as your body wakes up, but now it's contending with thick, sticky blood and narrowed, inelastic arteries. This is a volatile mix, creating the perfect breeding ground for a stroke. Let me tell you about one patient. He was 71, sharp-minded, still enjoyed gardening, and could drive. Yet, every morning for 3 decades, he fried his eggs in lard. It's how his wife cooked them, he told me. One morning after breakfast, he stood up, lost his balance, and collapsed. His speech became slurred. He couldn't move his right arm. He suffered a massive ischemic stroke and permanently lost the ability to walk independently. The tragedy was that scans showed years of arterial damage. The warning signs had built up gradually, unnoticed, through habits that seemed completely harmless. Even more alarming is that most older adults experience no symptoms until the critical moment arrives. A stroke doesn't warn, it bursts in unannounced. It robs you of independence, mobility, and memory, sometimes in mere minutes. You might survive, but at what cost? A wheelchair, a feeding tube, watching your grandchildren grow up from within the walls of a rehabilitation center. All for what? Just a few spoonfuls of lard in the morning. The threat is very real and entirely preventable. If you're over 60, your vascular system is already undergoing age-related changes. Arteries lose their regenerative capacity. Every meal rich in saturated fats is another blow to your brain's blood supply. You're not just indulging, you're playing a dangerous game of roulette with your future. Want to reduce your stroke risk starting tomorrow? Eliminate butter and lard. Opt for boiled or poached eggs instead. Your brain doesn't need excess fats. It needs oxygen, adequate circulation, and gentle care. However, the problem isn't limited to the fat in your pan. What's next to your eggs on the plate is also crucial. This brings us to the second dangerous habit: adding processed meats like sausage or ham. And it's worth noting, this can be even more detrimental. Adding processed meats like sausage or ham. There's something deeply nostalgic about sizzling sausage in a pan. The sound, the smell. It evokes memories of hurried breakfasts before school, Sunday brunches, and family holidays. For many older adults, sausage or ham alongside eggs isn't just a deeply ingrained habit, it's a cherished tradition. However, here's a truth most medical professionals don't convey clearly enough. Processed meats like sausage, ham, and bacon are among the most dangerous foods you can consume if you're over 60, especially in the morning. Let me tell you about one of my patients. She was a 69-year-old grandmother from Kentucky. She was energetic, still gardened, walked her dog regularly, and took pride in making breakfast for her husband every day. But one morning, she suddenly collapsed in her kitchen. She suffered a massive stroke that paralyzed the right side of her body. When I later met with her family, her daughter brought a food diary the patient had kept. Every morning, 2 fried eggs, toast, and 2 slices of ham or sausage. She believed she was doing everything right, but that processed meat had been subtly eroding her health for years. Here's why it's so dangerous. Processed meats are loaded with sodium, nitrates, and saturated fats. Just the sodium in 2 breakfast sausages can exceed 700 milligrams, which is already half the recommended daily intake for older adults trying to manage blood pressure. Add nitrates, chemical preservatives used to extend shelf life and enhance flavor, and you're triggering oxidative stress in your bloodstream. This stress damages the endothelial lining of your arteries, making them prone to hardening, narrowing, and clot formation. Older adults are especially vulnerable because arteries naturally lose elasticity with age. Many already have undiagnosed high blood pressure. Blood thickens and slows its flow, especially after sleep. This means your morning plate of processed meat creates the perfect internal conditions. You're contributing to elevated blood pressure, causing vessel constriction, and reducing oxygen delivery to your brain. All of this happens within the first hour of waking. And here's the most frightening part. You won't feel it happening. There's no pain, no obvious warning signs. Not until you suddenly lose your balance, your speech becomes slurred, or one side of your face droops in the mirror. And by then, the damage is done. What's the price of that seemingly harmless slice of ham? It could be needing a feeding tube because you lose the ability to swallow, being confined to a bed in a nursing home because you can't move, or the unbearable burden of losing the ability to communicate with your spouse or grandchildren forever. You might tell yourself, but it's just a small piece of meat. And I, as a neurologist, will tell you, it's enough to tip the scales when your brain is already on the brink. So before you add another slice of sausage to your plate, ask yourself if that fleeting taste is worth your independence. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I'll skip the sausage, but what if I add some cheddar cheese to my eggs? That's not as bad, right? In reality, too much cheese and its accompanying salt can pose an even greater danger than processed meats. Here's why. Cheese and salt overload. It starts with a small sprinkle, maybe a little grated cheddar on your scrambled eggs, a pinch of table salt for flavor. Seems harmless, right? For many older adults, this morning ritual feels comforting, even well-deserved after a life of hard work and raising children. But what most seniors don't realize is that this simple act can subtly inflict harm on their brain. I recall a patient, 71 years old, a retired school teacher from Michigan. He came to the clinic complaining of frequent dizziness and brief episodes of confusion, mostly in the mornings. His wife thought it was just old age, but I knew better. After a neurological exam and scans, it was revealed he had suffered a series of microstrokes over several months. These minor events often go unrecognized, but lead to irreversible brain damage over time. He didn't drink, didn't smoke, even walked his dog every morning. But when his diet was analyzed, one habit stood out. Every day, he made scrambled eggs, generously loaded with cheese, a bit of butter, and heavily salted. It was his comforting, routine breakfast, but for his blood vessels, it was a daily disaster. Let me explain why. Cheese is high in saturated fat and sodium. Most processed or shredded cheeses can contain 200 to 400 milligrams of sodium per ounce, and many people consume far more than they realize. Add regular table salt or other salty seasonings, and you end up consuming half your recommended daily sodium intake before your morning meal is even finished. Here's what happens inside your body. Sodium contributes to elevated blood pressure. Saturated fats encourage plaque buildup in your arteries. Your blood becomes thicker, and its circulation is hampered, especially through narrowed brain vessels. This dangerous combination puts immense strain on your cardiovascular system during the most vulnerable hours of the day, the morning when blood pressure naturally rises. For older adults, especially those with hypertension or diabetes, this can be the tipping point, leading to a full-blown stroke or a slow, unnoticed decline in brain health. Many don't feel it immediately, but gradually start losing memory, balance, and coordination without understanding why. The patient's story ended with months of speech therapy and drastic lifestyle changes. He admitted to me, "I never thought a little cheese could do so much harm." But it wasn't just the cheese. It was the daily sodium and fat overload at the worst possible time. This is how stroke risk creeps in, not with a bang, but with a barely audible whisper. If you're over 60 and still sprinkling cheese and salt on your eggs, it's time to stop and ask if that taste is worth the future of your mind. But the story doesn't end there, because even if your eggs are cooked perfectly and you avoid bacon and cheese, there's still another hidden danger most older adults overlook: eating eggs without fiber-rich foods. And this can be just as dangerous. Eating eggs without fiber-rich foods. For many older adults, a couple of eggs on a plate, whether fried or scrambled, seems like the perfect breakfast. It's quick, familiar, and filling. But here's a truth most seniors never hear. Consuming eggs in isolation, without fiber, puts your brain and heart at risk every single morning. Let me tell you about a 71-year-old widow from Arizona. She was an active church member, volunteered at her community center, and prided herself on eating healthily. Her breakfast was simple: 2 eggs and a cup of coffee. No toast, no fruit, no oatmeal. She believed she was making a healthy choice, but she didn't realize this habit was setting her up for disaster. One morning, she woke up dizzy. Her hands trembled slightly, and her speech was a bit slower than usual. Her daughter rushed her to the emergency room. It turned out she had experienced a small but significant ischemic event, a transient ischemic attack, TI. And what caused it? A combination of insufficient hydration and a diet completely devoid of fiber. Here's why this matters. Eggs, while rich in protein and nutrients like choline, contain no fiber. When you eat eggs alone, especially on an empty stomach, your blood sugar can fluctuate rapidly, digestion slows, and there's nothing in your system to help regulate cholesterol or maintain healthy blood flow. Over time, a low-fiber diet leads to increased LDL cholesterol, elevated blood pressure, and sluggish circulation. All of these are major contributors to stroke and cognitive decline. For older adults, fiber isn't optional, it's vital. Fiber helps lower cholesterol, stabilize blood sugar, and reduce inflammation in blood vessels. It supports healthy digestion and prevents plaque buildup in your arteries. Yet, over 90% of Americans over 60 don't get enough fiber, especially in the morning when it's most crucial. The price of this neglect can be devastating. It's not just about heart disease or constipation. A fiberless diet deprives your brain of the nutrients and balance it needs to stay sharp and strong. And the damage accumulates slowly, unnoticed, until one day, like this woman, you wake up and your body no longer functions properly. Now, she's changed her routine. She still eats eggs, but she adds a small bowl of steel-cut oatmeal or a slice of whole grain toast with avocado, and always drinks a glass of water first. She told me, "I never knew what I was missing until I almost lost everything." And you might not know it either if you don't take this seriously. But even if you're getting enough fiber, there's one mistake many older adults still make: eating too many eggs each week without tracking it. This might seem harmless, but for some, it can subtly elevate cholesterol and stroke risk to dangerous levels. Let me tell you why. Eating too many eggs per week without knowing your numbers. Among older Americans, there's a saying, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." But when it comes to your brain, what you don't see can cause irreparable harm. Most older adults believe eggs are safe, even beneficial, and in many ways they can be. They're rich in protein, vitamin B12, and choline, all important for an aging body. But what too many people over 60 don't realize is that consuming an excessive number of eggs per week, especially without knowing your cholesterol levels, blood pressure, and stroke risk, can turn a healthy habit into a hidden danger. Let me tell you about a 66-year-old Navy veteran from Florida, a strong, proud, independent man. He started every morning with 3 fried eggs, 7 days a week, sometimes 4 on Sundays. "They keep me full and going," he'd say. But one morning, his wife found him slumped over the kitchen table. He was conscious but couldn't speak. He had suffered a moderate ischemic stroke caused by a blood clot blocking blood flow to part of his brain. His MRI showed signs of what are called silent strokes, multiple events that had likely been occurring for months without any warning. When his labs were reviewed, it turned out his LDL cholesterol was high, triglycerides were elevated, and he didn't even know it because, like many men his age, he hadn't seen a doctor in over 2 years. He believed he was fine. Egg yolks contain dietary cholesterol, about 185 milligrams per yolk. This isn't necessarily bad, but if your body already struggles to process fats, or if you have underlying vascular conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, or narrowed arteries, this cholesterol can contribute to plaque buildup and reduce blood flow to your brain. Over time, this leads to atherosclerosis, making it easier for blood clots to form, the very clots that cause strokes. The American Heart Association recommends limiting cholesterol intake, especially for those at risk. For many older adults, this means no more than 4 to 6 whole eggs per week, and even fewer if other high cholesterol foods are part of their diet. He survived, but the stroke permanently affected his speech, and he now requires assistance with daily tasks. He told me, with tears in his eyes, if I'd known those eggs added up like that, I would have made different choices. This is the part that saddens me most, when the damage could have been prevented with a little knowledge, a simple checkup, or one less egg on the plate. So before you crack your next egg, ask yourself, do I know my numbers, my blood pressure, my cholesterol, my stroke risk? Because what you don't know truly can hurt you, especially after 60. Now, if you're wondering whether you need to cut out eggs entirely, don't worry. There are smarter, safer ways to enjoy them. What kind of eggs should you eat instead? After all that's been said about butter, bacon, cheese, lack of fiber, and the silent buildup of cholesterol, you might be asking, do I need to cut eggs out of my diet entirely? The answer is no, but you must choose the right kind of eggs and prepare them properly if you want to protect your brain. I once treated a 76-year-old retired librarian from Oregon. She had always been health conscious, avoided junk food, and cooked at home. But she came to me after her adult daughter noticed she was repeating herself, losing things, and sometimes getting confused. Her scans showed signs of mild vascular cognitive impairment, an early stage of dementia, but clear damage from small, repeated episodes of reduced blood flow to her brain. She was devastated. I thought I was eating well, she told me, holding back tears. And in many ways, she was right, except for one habit. She ate 2 fried eggs with cheddar cheese and toast almost every morning. No fiber, high sodium, and too much saturated fat. Over time, this small decision had been eroding her brain circulation. I then helped her build a better breakfast, and it started with a better egg. If you're over 60 and want to enjoy eggs without risking your brain, here's what you need to do. Start with boiled or poached eggs. These methods involve no added fats, unlike frying or scrambling with butter. They keep the egg whole, preserve the protein, and minimize the oxidation of cholesterol that occurs when high heat damages the cholesterol in egg yolks, making it more harmful to your arteries. Next, pair your eggs with fiber-rich foods. Take a slice of whole grain toast, half an avocado, or a small bowl of berries. Fiber helps reduce cholesterol absorption, stabilize blood sugar, and support healthy digestion. All of this contributes to better brain circulation. For older adults with high cholesterol, consider eating egg whites. They contain no cholesterol, yet still provide high-quality protein. You can even find liquid egg white products at the grocery store that are easy to cook and safe for your heart and brain. And most importantly, know your numbers. If you don't know your total cholesterol, LDL, HDL, and triglycerides, you need to talk to your doctor. You can't make informed decisions if you're operating in the dark about your health. For many older adults, consuming 4 to 6 whole eggs per week is perfectly safe, but this is only true if you're regularly monitoring your health metrics. More than that can subtly contribute to vascular issues, even if you feel perfectly fine today. The key takeaway is that eggs can still be part of your morning routine, but only if you approach their consumption consciously and respectfully. Don't let ingrained habits or traditions cloud your judgment about potential risks. Your brain doesn't care how long you've been doing something. It only cares about the current state of your arteries. The patient I mentioned made these changes, and after 3 months, her labs significantly improved. Her daughter noted remarkable improvements. She was more alert, more focused, and back to her old self. It wasn't just the eggs. It was the power of conscious, preventive decisions driven by healthcare, not fleeting comfort. And now, it's your turn. The eggs you choose tomorrow can determine the health of your brain for years to come. But this is only the beginning, because an even greater danger than what's on your plate is what's missing from your daily routine. There's one morning habit almost every older adult persistently ignores, and it could be the final, silent trigger that pushes your brain toward a stroke. Your morning plate can determine the quality of the rest of your life. If you're over 60, every morning decision isn't just about today, but about protecting your brain, physical state, and independence for years to come. We've covered eggs, how they're cooked, what's added to them, and what they're combined with. We've analyzed the hidden threats lurking in sausage and ham, the silent creep of too much cheese and salt, the risks associated with insufficient fiber, and the quiet, cumulative harm of excessive egg consumption without monitoring your health metrics. These aren't just dietary recommendations. They're science-backed warnings supported by real clinical experience, designed to open your eyes before it's irreversibly too late. For here is the truth. A stroke typically doesn't strike out of the blue. It builds up subtly over years of repeated decisions, through habits we follow for comfort or simply out of inertia. And it only takes one morning, one critical moment, when a clot forms, a vessel ruptures, or the brain is suddenly deprived of oxygen, for life to change in an instant. I've seen it far too often. The grandmother who now can't remember her children's names. The veteran who lost the ability to dress himself. The husband who speaks in whispers because a stroke stole his voice. And in so many of these cases, they thought they were doing the right things. They believed their breakfast was fine. They didn't know they were overloading their aging arteries, triggering inflammation in their blood vessels, thereby increasing their risk every single morning. But here's what I want you to remember. It's never too late to start making changes. There's no need to fear eggs. You don't have to give up everything you enjoy. However, you must be mindful, informed, and willing to let go of outdated habits that no longer serve your aging body. Start with simple steps. Choose boiling over frying. Replace processed meats with fresh greens or berries. Eliminate excess salt. Get enough fiber. Drink water. Most importantly, know your medical numbers. Consult your doctor, ask questions, and don't rely on guesswork when it comes to your brain health. For the greatest tragedy I see in my clinic isn't the stroke itself. It's someone suffering from stroke that was entirely preventable. So tomorrow morning, as you stand in your kitchen and reach for that frying pan, I hope you'll pause. I hope you'll remember this message. I hope you'll make a different choice. Not just for your morning meal, but for your entire future, because your brain deserves many healthy mornings, and that starts with the decisions you make today.